Hello and welcome to my latest talk on the Roman road between the Roman towns at St Albans and Silchester. The road was first suggested by a Roman road hunting group called the Viatores. Their suggested part of the route, known as Margary Road 163, stopped at the River Thames as they could not trace it further. Little of what the Viatores suggest matches what I am about to show you. We are going to start at the northeast end at St Albans with the Roman town of Verulamium. There are multiple candidates for the road leaving Verulamium, and the Viatores route, shown as a black line, seems to flip between two of them. The features on here are colour coded. Light blue are map progression features, dark blue are LiDAR features, and magenta are aerial photo features, and we're going to look at the area of aerial photograph features shown in magenta now. I should point out that while I usually use Google Earth for aerial photographs because of its variety of historical imagery, Bing has an alternative set of imagery that has been particularly useful for finding this road. Here you can see 3 roads and some associated roadside settlement to the southwest of Verulamium. For a while I agree with the Viatores route, but after the village of Bedmond my route starts to deviate somewhat. The reasons for this may initially seem tenuous, but later on will become very clear. At King's Langley there is a building which has been interpreted as a Roman villa with Roman period occupation around it. There is a chance that this is actually part of a roadside settlement. As far as the evidence of the road itself is concerned, still so far so tenuous. Again, where the road potentially crosses the river, this time the River Chess, we have another settlement, this time at Sarat, where a agricultural settlement has been found on the banks of the river. It's only when we get to Little Chalfont that we finally find a very clear section of the road in Pollard's Wood. I found this back in 2017, and this is what led me to investigate the rest of the road. Here is a close-up of the section of the road passing through Pollard's Wood. There is a possibility on the high ground that the feature marked A is a signal beacon, and next to it at B an undated enclosure. Not much further on is another clear section of the road in Hodgemore Woods west of Chalfont St Giles. The road has been cut by medieval ridge and furrow, and if you look closely you can also see quarry pits next to the road where material has been dug out to make up the agger of the road. This will be very important later on in the video. As we approach Beaconsfield, there is a very weak section of the road before it disappears under modern housing. The road disappears under the conurbation of Beaconsfield. At first glance, the feature in the centre of the image marked in dark blue appears to be a paleo channel, but the angles are all wrong. What this could be is the course of the Roman road that has been eroded by water, with the paleo channel to the north of it taking the water and mud away, eroding it down into the very large feature that you see now. As the road leaves the area of Beaconsfield down Glory Hill Lane, it crosses the M40 where the purple dot marks where the road was excavated when the M40 was constructed. Thank you to Paul Seddon for that tip. Further down in the valley it joins Glory Mill Lane, crosses the valley, and then up the other side up Juniper Lane. Headsall Wharf at the bottom of this image is where the route favoured by the Viatores stopped, but we are much further to the north around Hackwell Heath. The line marked in magenta is where the Roman road shows on aerial photographs in a surprising way. Cast your mind back to earlier in the talk where I showed you a section of LiDAR where the road had quarry pits at either side, where material had been excavated to make up the agger. Starting at the eastern end of those photographs at Fern, what you can see is we have lost both the agger and the roadside ditches, and all we are left with is a series of quarry pits. The long line that you can see is the quarry pits to the south of the road, and you can see a couple to the north at the eastern end. Further to the west, between Fern and Little Marlow, the quarry pits continue, showing mostly south of the road to the east and north of the road to the west. Ignore the feature diagonally crossing the image, that's a water pipe. At Little Marlow, the quarry pits continue across several fields, and the blue arrow marks a roadside enclosure where the enclosure is on the same alignment as the Roman road, so it could be Roman period in date. Going through Marlow and out the other side, the road is occasionally barely visible on LiDAR, with a particularly well preserved section at Marlow Common. Here you can see the agger clearly defined, with quarry pits on either side. Further to the west there is a long but barely visible section of the road visible on LiDAR before we reach Mill End. As the road descends into the floodplain near Mill End, it appears on Bing imagery, where you can see pointed at by the blue arrows the side ditches of the Roman road. To the south of that there is an extensive settlement with buildings, roads, ditches and pits. Various parts of the settlement show on different aerial photographs. Photographs of the area to the south of the River Thames are not available on the usual internet platforms. Instead, the interpretation here is taken from the reference shown on the bottom right of the image. Roads are shown in green, ditches in red and buildings in light blue. Southeast of Mill End there is a known Roman villa. What I am suggesting is that there is a river crossing at Mill End. First of all, because there is no further evidence of the road to the west. Second of all, there is evidence of road to the south. And thirdly, the presence of the settlement is what you would expect where a Roman road crosses a river. One problem with this is that the Roman road from the east seems to go past the modern road, which I think follows the road to the south. There may be a T-junction here, it may be a turn, it's not completely clear. Looking at the bathymetry of the River Thames, there's no evidence of a crossing at Mill End, though there is an artificial ford further to the southeast, though this has probably nothing to do with the Roman settlement. The evidence on land is more promising, however. The road appears to go through Aston, and the section highlighted to the south starts as a raised agger, then turns into a cut before turning into an agger again furthest to the south. This is something that you would expect from a Roman road, where different sections of road have different levels of wear and robbing. There is a particularly well preserved section of cut in a small section of woodland to the south. Further to the south, the road seems to continue, with evidence from two sites on the historical environment record. At the northernmost site near Remham Hill, Roman period settlement was found along with two parallel curving ditches, which may have been the side ditches of the Roman road. This may relate to the feature shown on the aerial image to the right. I was unable to check as the original excavation report is not available. At the southern feature, southeast of Park Place, marked by the purple dot, further evidence of Roman settlement was found in troll trenching. Evidence then starts to get more sporadic. The suggested turn back towards Silchester may be explained by the need to get around the deep paleo channel to the west of Crazes Hill. Ivan Margry notes an excavation near Wargrave Church marked by the purple dot. A section of Roman road was apparently excavated here, but I'm not completely convinced by that. Where things really start to get interesting is to the west of Charville, which we'll look at next. The road and other trackways appear on aerial photographs in the area of Sonning-on-Charville, suggesting some local settlement. It also appears on a geophysics report targeting prehistoric features just to the west of Charville. The road is clearest nearest to Charville, where the side ditches of the road are visible. To the west of Sonning, a series of trackways are visible, but it is not clear which, if any, represent the Roman road. Further to the west, the road is lost in the modern conurbation of Reading, but Roman period settlement has been found around the red dot where the road would presumably cross the River Kennet. The road then appears again as it leaves Reading to the southwest at Seals Farm, where the Silchester Iron Age Environments Project records a road and roadside settlement where it crosses the River Kennet for a second time. From there we are on our final approach to Silchester and the Iron Age Oppidum earthworks shown in green. Before we finish up, I have one last aerial photograph to show you from Mortimer. In a park in Mortimer, the roadside ditches show particularly well. And here is the entire route between St Albans and Silchester, showing the road and the settlements along its length. It would make sense if there was an additional road between the Thames crossing at Aston and the Roman settlement at Benton near Dorchester-on-Thames, but I've yet to see any evidence of that. Thank you for listening.